Welcome to the Country Hipster Podcast. My name is Paul. I am the Country Hipster. That music you heard was none other than the Unholy Four and their mega fucking hit song, Dirty Knife. Check out the Unholy Four on Spotify, Bandcamp, Apple Music, YouTube, Instagram, and wherever you can find the Unholy Four. Podcast specific promo code 2025 gets you 25% off of your entire order, not our normal 15%, 25% off of your entire order at the Ottsville Record Garage. Fuck, I forgot to grab something, but that's okay because as you guys see, Adam is not here. The country sleepyhead was not able to make this episode. But speaking of the Unholy Four, our special guest and my co-host today is none other than Sean from the Unholy Four. How you doing, Sean?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. You just froze there for a second, but I think you're okay now.
I don't know, man. We're out here in the sticks, man. I don't know.
You're in the woods. You were doing a little like crafting this past couple of weeks. Where are you actually talking to me from?
Crafting?
Yeah, man. I'd say you did a little bit of crafting there on your little shack.
Oh well, I mean, I wouldn't call it crafting. I mean, this is the jam shack, man. This is new. It's just a little box, man. It's just a little 12 by 16-ish place for drums.
Very cool.
Yeah, and my plan is I've got like a little old 4-track tape recorder, cassette, Okay. And the plan is to just have my friends come over and just do weird on the spot recordings, for fun.
Nice. And you were telling me you found some old recordings from stuff that we did, huh?
Oh man! So literally yesterday, finished the trim was finished, and I started setting up my stereo, and I have this box of tapes. Not many, like 20 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of these tapes is priceless, man. It's stuff from when we were 15. Murphy
Nice.
Destroy. It's stuff from later when you and I played with Ray.
The 96 Shakes, I believe.
Yeah, 96 Shakes. It's all kinds of stuff.
Didn't we have a song called Chief Halftown or some shit like that?
I don't know. I was hoping to understand what the fuck we were doing, but
for some
cool.
reason,
it's better than I remembered.
You were obsessed with Chief Halftown when we were doing the 96 Shakes. I don't even know why. So
I don't know why.
I think actually, if you look up on Angel Fire, I think Angel Fire is still a thing. If you do look up angelfire.com/96 shakes, I think we actually had a website.
Oh shit, really?
That's pretty crazy. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna check that real quick.
All that shit was, it's over my head now. It would have been way over my head then. I didn't do anything but drink. I was,
Let me see. I guess it's not there anymore. So the 96 Shakes. Let's see. Yeah, no, it does not appear to be there anymore. So
I will say I didn't listen to a whole lot of it. The music is way better than I remembered. Well, this is my first impression of the tape. Your bass playing is great.
Thank you.
Not that I thought it wasn't. I just didn't remember how good it was. And Ray was pretty great too.
Yeah. No, we were onto something good there, and then Ray fell asleep behind the drums.
Yeah.
Yep.
You need a lot of crazy people playing music, man.
Absolutely. So we are not here to reminisce today. We are actually here to talk about an album. And the album is Led Zeppelin 4. But before we get into that, technically this is a Booze and Vinyl episode from Booze and Vinyl. The original Booze and Vinyl by Andre Darlington, BFF the podcast, Andre Darlington and his sister Tanaya Darlington. But we are not doing the drinks today. We are, but I'm going to talk about them. And if you go to andredarlington.com, you can pick up a copy of Booze and Vinyl Volume 2, a Christmas Booze and Vinyl, and then the litany of other cool cocktail recipe books that Andre Darlington has available there. So the cool thing about this with Led Zeppelin 4, the genre is hard rock, blues rock, folk rock. I don't really get folk rock from it, but when you spin this would be at a ritual sacrifice, example, a barbecue meat party. The drink on here. So there's two recipes on this particular album here, and one is a drink recipe and one is actually a food recipe. The drink recipe, this is the other reason why we're not doing it. Even if Tom, the official bartender of the Ottsville Record Garage, was here, we wouldn't do this because this is it's called Hellfire Punch, which is a punch that serves 20 to 30 people. And generally there's
Yeah.
only, at the most 4 or 5 people on the Country Hipster podcast at one time, but it does look like a pretty interesting punch. It's got some brandy, it's got some rum, some cherry brandy, so there's 2 different types of brandy in there. And then like a lot of the other stuff, it's heated with like 8 cups of milk, so it's a very, very interesting Hellfire Club, which I guess maybe Hellfire Club could with like Stranger Things as well. So it's pretty cool. But like the thing that I actually find a little bit cooler about this, and I think I'm going to make this, is the food recipe. Check this out. I love a good fucking pun. The food recipe is for the lead Zeppelin, which is basically a boneless pork loin with the fat still intact. You use some olive oil, some sea salt, some hard cider, chicken stock, and you just, peeled shallots, some garlic, and you just kind of, make it all good. Throw some pink lady apples in there, put it at 375, and then you cook it for a little while, and then reduce it down to 325 and let it go for like 2.5 hours. So you get a nice, good lead Zepp loin. So I think I will be trying to do that very soon, I think, because that just sounds number one easy, and it sounds delicious. And like I said, I like a good pun on words there. So
Do you think that through the Led Zeppelin you might become a Led Zeppelin fan?
no, absolutely not. But I might enjoy something about Led Zeppelin through the Led Zeppelin. So go check out the Hellfire Punch recipe, as well as the recipe for the Led Zeppelin in Booze and Vinyl, Volume 1, by Andre Darlington, BFF the podcast, Andre Darlington and his sister Tanaya Darlington. And you can pick up the all of the Booze and Vinyl books at through Andre Darlington's website, which is andredarlington.com. And also you can follow him on Instagram as well. He's a very cool guy. And if you send him a message, he will respond. It's really neat. So the factoids on this album, I'll get into them. I'll get into the factoids here. There's a decent amount. What's that?
Yeah. Can I tell you, I'm coming into this really cold. I mean, I know Led Zeppelin 4. It's been a while since I've heard it, and I don't really know. It's funny, for as much as I've listened to Led Zeppelin, which is a pretty big chunk of my life, I really don't dive that, like, the factoids. I probably don't know is what I'm
right. No, that's totally cool. I totally understand. That's why we provide them here on every episode of the Country Hipster podcast.
I don't want to become an expert.
Okay. All right. This is the untitled 4th studio album from the English rock band Led Zeppelin. It was released on November 8th, 1971. It was produced by guitarist Jimmy Page and recorded from December 1970 to February 1971, mostly in the country house Headley Grange. So that is one thing I did find out about this. I didn't realize that Jimmy Page produced the album, and he's the only producer listed. I know they worked with on this album the guy who produced Sticky Fingers for the Rolling Stones. Also, he did the engineering with the mobile studio that was also used to record Sticky Fingers. But that is one thing I found interesting, that Jimmy Page actually produced the whole album.
Do you like Sticky Fingers?
Oh, I love Sticky Fingers. I love Sticky Fingers. I love the Rolling Stones. So they're an amazing band. After Led Zeppelin 3 received lukewarm reviews by the critics, they decided the 4th album would also be untitled and represented by the 4 symbols, one chosen by each band member, without featuring the name or any other details on the cover. And it is an iconic cover. This is definitely, I'll show you right here. This is definitely one of those like covers of an album. You see it, you know what this is. It doesn't need to say Led Zeppelin 4 anywhere on it. You just look at this and you know this is Led Zeppelin, and you know what album it is. You know that Stairway to Heaven is on this album. The album was a critical and commercial success, becoming their best-selling album, having sold over 37 million copies worldwide, and is one of the best-selling albums in the U.S. alone. I'm going to get into that later.
Does that bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me, but it's I'll get into it. I'll get into it. Uh,
Uh,
Critically, the album was received overall well, and a lot of praise from the critics and from a lot of people. A lot. I mean, sold over 37 million copies worldwide. What the fuck? It has not been. What the hell did I write here? I can't read my. Some critics have also said it is a genre defining album for not only for Led Zeppelin but for the style of 70s hard rock. It's like the album that like everything else from the 70s is apparently based off of, which I don't agree because there's a lot of really good stuff that came out of the 70s. So um it has appeared on all three of the Rolling Stone 500 greatest albums of all time. In 2003, it was ranked at 66. In 2012, when they re-ranked it, it was at 69. And in 2020, it was re-ranked at 58. This is what I found interesting. The 1971-72 charts, like it charted all over the world. So there's like too many charts to get into, but in the Billboard 200 in the US, it only hit number 2. It actually didn't hit number 1, which number 2 is still pretty impressive, but it hit number 2. And then in 2014, when they actually I think they did a whole remastering and re-release of all Led Zeppelin's catalog. It actually charted number 1 on the Billboard top catalog albums. And what that is, the catalog albums are basically for reissues or just albums that have been around for a while that whether they're not new releases, they're just old releases. Like that's one of the reasons why like Willie Nelson's Stardust still charts is because of the catalog charts and whatnot. 2 singles on the album, which were likely released on 45s. What's technically 4, but they're talking about the actual singles of 45s. So that would be the first one was Black Dog on the A side, and the B side was Misty Mountain Hop. And then the second one was Rock and Roll, with the B side being 4 Sticks. And the album, of course, you can't forget to mention that it features their most iconic 8-minute song, Stairway to Heaven, is on here, which I believe is like the all-time like selling single for Led Zeppelin as well,
which is pretty crazy for an 8-minute song. That's
yes.
crazy.
Yeah, and it's 7 minutes and 59 seconds too long, but that's just my opinion. So all right, so should I talk about the good stuff first, or you know what? No, I'll get into it. I'll let you know what you tell me. I'm going to give you this opportunity to represent all Led Zeppelin fans from all over the world, all 37 million people who have bought a copy of this album.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about not just this album, because as you said, you're coming into this cold. I know I kind of threw you on the spot here, but Led Zeppelin in general. Like it's my thing with Led Zeppelin is it's not just this album that I don't like. I just don't like Led Zeppelin. So you are the voice of the people. Convince me why I'm wrong, and then I'll show you why I'm not. But go on.
Oh yeah, no pressure. I'm the voice of 37 million people that bought the album.
Yes.
I mean, I can't convince you to like Led Zeppelin. I get that, right? I can't convince anybody. Somebody said once that music is like food, and you either love it, hate it, or you're indifferent to it.
Okay.
I think that's kind of true. I don't know why some people don't like nachos. They're fucking delicious, right? Some people don't like it.
Great. Especially if you do you ever have like El Pastor nachos?
What is that? What is it?
El Pastor is like it's like a certain way you like cook pork. It's got like pineapple and it's just like some spices. It's just fucking delicious. If you ever get a chance, if you're ordering nachos and you have the opportunity to get El Pastor on your nachos, fucking get the El Pastor. Fucking anything El Pastor is fucking amazing.
No.
Anyway, go on.
Okay, so I'm just gonna try not to be like long-winded about it, but
no, please be.
When you and I were in 5th or 6th grade, I want to say 6th grade, kid at school gave me a tape, Led Zeppelin 4. It was the first Led Zeppelin I ever heard. To my knowledge, it was the first Led Zeppelin I ever Took it home, put it on. I think I used to have a boombox with some headphones back then because I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to sneak all this shit past my parents, all this like heavy metal and shit that I was getting into. Put it on. Black Dog starts with that jump, 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 whatever the fuck that weird noise is.
Yeah.
Still to this day, when I hear that, I get like a weird kind of feeling that I got when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, what? It's uncomfortable. You
Uh-huh.
know what I mean? It's like, but I was intrigued, I was really into like, we talked about it on the Iron Maiden when we talked about Iron Maiden. I was really into that shit. Like, give me some devil music. Like, I want to fucking hear some weird shit. So, so Black Dog is very hard to absorb. I mean, it's very sort of like even now when I hear it, it's there's like a weird fighting time tempo thing at points with the drums. I still don't understand it. I don't pretend to understand it. Rock and roll is like this fucking weird, rock and roll song, which sounds like not mysterious at all and not spooky, right?
Uh-huh.
Then it goes into like whatever, going to California, there's like a fucking mandolin or some shit. I mean, it's the album is all over the fucking
Yeah.
place.
Yep.
And there's a general like spookiness on that album. Like I think there's something weird going down on that album, man. There's this weird for me. I don't know. I can't make you, hear it that, but and then I kind of went backwards on Led Zeppelin, and I'm like, when I went back and heard 1 and 2, I was like, oh, they're just like a blues band. Like they just sound like Cream and every other British band that was doing heavy blues. So that kind of confused me for a while. And then the later Led Zeppelin stuff, I avoided for a long time. I did not get it. I did not want to get it. It was
So what are you
strange.
talking about? Like House of the Holy, Presence,
Yeah,
for the
all that stuff.
outdoor?
House of Holy, Presence, Into the Outdoor, Physical Graffiti.
Oh, right.
I
I
just
forgot about that one.
avoided it forever and stayed
I,
in my Led Zeppelin 4 world.
I would say Physical Graffiti is like one of the all-time, aside from Led Zeppelin 4, is like one of the all-time iconic fucking album covers ever.
That's so cool.
It's
Yeah.
great. It's so cool.
Cool.
And I'm going to mention this, right? So I'm holding a conversation with you about Led Zeppelin, right? So I just want to point that out to our listeners and anybody else that like when I give my very very one-sided opinions of Led Zeppelin, I have fucking looked into this band. I can hold a conversation about Led Zeppelin. So I just want to point that out. I know the band. So anyway, go on.
I I suspect that you do from your brothers, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, were those guys not playing Led Zeppelin all the time, right?
Oh, Michael was, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, really hard to sum up all of Led Zeppelin.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah, but they're an interesting. I was actually quite a bit older than when I heard 4 when I got into the other stuff, and I think it was Physical Graffiti or House of the Holy that I kind of like, slowly. I just wasn't Led Zeppelin will make you, if you're willing to listen to it, and I'm not talking about you, I mean anybody, absorb like weird drum patterns and there's a lot of weird fucking shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it seems to me when you look at if you were going to look at their whole catalog, that from the beginning to where they end up, that they're really trying to challenge the listener. You know what I mean? And that they had the opportunity to do that because they were so successful with the early albums. But even like right from the get go, like you have 1 and 2, and it's like I said, this kind of blues rock, British, very
Uh-huh.
By Zeppelin 3, they're doing like shit that sounds like bluegrass.
Uh-huh.
There's all kinds of weird instrumentation coming in on 4. Um, yeah, it's challenging. I get why some people don't like it. It can be a challenge to listen to. You know what I mean? And it's just so ingrained in me because I've been listening to Led Zeppelin for so long. I mean, like, yeah, it's a little hard for me to see it any other way. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, And I think by the end, if I'm remembering correctly, the critics were ragging on Zeppelin at the end. I'm pretty sure.
They might have
Like
been. Yeah, I
Presence
don't know. Yeah.
and In Through the Outdoor, I don't think those were going over very well. They're
Okay.
weird fucking.
Okay.
So are they like sort of a prog band in a way? Are they pushing the fucking envelope all the time? I don't know. They probably alienated a lot of people after
So
Stairway to Heaven.
so I'll say this: I don't particularly care for Prague, but I would not consider him Prague. I definitely would
I don't
consider
mean
him.
prog in. Yeah, I don't mean like in the sense of the
Yeah.
genre. I just mean, are they constantly pushing to move forward in their music? Or I don't know. I'm not really sure what Jimmy Page was he just fucked up? You know what I mean? Because he was historically fucked up. Like he was on drugs. I
so
don't know.
here is my take on Led Zeppelin as a
Yeah,
band. Okay.
by all means.
Four amazing musicians individually,
Agreed.
okay,
Agreed. Yeah.
who just happened to get together, and I guess it worked, right? If
Hmm.
what what the band reminds me of is, so in high school there was this dude who was one of the most amazing guitar players I've ever heard in my life, like professional and not professional, was so fucking good. And he, like, I was in high school with him, he's like 16 years old and fucking smoked a lot of weed and played the most amazing guitar, the most amazing riffs fucking ever, could fucking shred to no end.
Hmm.
However, nobody wanted to be in a band with him, and he
Hmm.
couldn't play in a band, right?
Right.
He was fucking amazing. Can't play well with
Right.
others because he does what he does and he does it. That's all he could do, is just what he does. And in my opinion, Led Zeppelin is for people who do
Hmm.
what they do as
Yeah.
individuals,
Uh-huh.
and are absolutely four of the most amazing musicians ever. Jimmy Page is an amazing guitar player. John Paul
Great.
Jones, fucking amazing bass player, one of the best bass players of all time, in my opinion. John Bonham,
Yeah.
I'm not big on drums. I know a lot of people say a lot of good stuff about John Bonham. I think he's sloppy, but I don't think sloppy means bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and this is again, I'm not big on drums. I think Keith Moon is a better drummer than John Bonham, but Keith
Mhm.
Moon technically is a horrible drummer. You know what I mean? He's all over the place. Probably one of the sloppiest drummers ever. But John Bonham, amazing drummer. And how can you fuck with Robert Plant's voice? You can't. Fucking the range is
Forever.
amazing. The emotion he sings with, absolutely amazing. Each
Yeah.
one of those four motherfuckers happened to be in the right place, right time, and got together, and they were the only people they could play with and make this music with. And as a combination of all these things that can only be done by individuals, putting it together as one thing doesn't work for me. It just, there is a such thing as too much of a good thing can ruin something. Do you know what I
Yeah, I get
mean?
that. Yeah, I get
Um,
that.
and
Absolutely.
it's like, and I think one of the things that kind of defends what I'm saying about that is that what happened to them individually? What did they put out beyond Led Zeppelin that was
Hmm.
any sort of, like, not even like a non-commercial success, any sort of a fucking success?
Right.
Nothing. Nothing. Not one of
Well,
them have put anything out individually that could be considered a success
you mean success is in like selling records?
in any form.
I think that the really
Because Robert Plant did like the Now and Zen, and he did the Honey Drippers and shit like that. But that shit kind of sucks. I love the Honey Drippers, but the Honey Drippers sucks, man. It's like fucking, like, fake rockabilly bullshit. And
yeah
Now and Zen, like, I like Law Cool Woman, but it wasn't a good album.
I think that, well, Robert Plant more recently, not very recently, but more recently did some stuff with Alison Krauss that I
Uh
thought
huh.
was pretty cool for old Robert Plant. I thought it was pretty.
Okay. Yeah,
I
no, it
think
wasn't bad.
it kind of went over. I don't know about record sales and things like that. I think it had some.
Uh huh.
Uh, I didn't see now. I don't want to say success because I don't know if it really did or not.
No, that definitely had some success, but definitely not on the level of anything Led Zeppelin did. And what did Jimmy
Yeah,
Page do besides just sit around and collect money and play guitar every now and then? You know what I mean?
yeah, I
And
don't know. I don't know
and
that
I
he's
know,
done anything.
yeah, and you had John Paul Jones, who did what was those, them Crooked Vultures? He played on that, but what else has he done? And
That's kind of
John Bonham, got raised one.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah,
but think about it too, is that, and yes, Robert Plant's currently doing the thing with Alison Krauss, and I have heard that it has been received well. But I've never had an issue with Robert Plant as an individual, his
right.
individual musician and whatnot. As I just said, he's one of the greatest rock and roll
Yeah,
singers of all time. Um,
yeah,
but like, even when remember when we saw the Who opened
yeah,
for the Who?
yeah.
It was
Robert Plant,
Robert Plant opened for the Who.
absolutely. Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And it really wasn't even that good. I mean,
I thought it was good as fucking Robert Plant, you know.
yeah, well,
Yeah, I don't know.
but that's the thing. That's Led Zeppelin to me is these four amazing musicians who got together and were able to work together for a period of time. And I know they put out a lot of albums and whatnot. It wasn't like they did like one album and one and done. Like they put out a lot of albums and they were able to work together for a long time. But it's just like it's almost like avant-garde jazz of fucking rock and roll, and I hate avant-garde jazz too.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. What I was trying to say is that I think particularly the later albums are fucking extremely experimental, man. They're
Uh-huh.
fucking weird. They're
Yeah.
weird. You
Yep.
know, it's like if I put on Zeppelin 1, 2, all right, it's like I said, it's the English blues rock,
Uh-huh.
heavy blues. I get it. By the time you get the presence, I'm like, huh? You know what I mean, seriously, I'm like, what? You know,
Yeah.
you have to think about you have to think like, what is he doing there?
Yep.
And that's interesting to me. I understand now to some people that's not interesting to them.
Yeah.
They just want to hear music that they can tap their foot to or whatever, drive to the fucking get lunch. I don't know what people do with music, but I'm saying like, yeah, I think they're one of those bands where you're either on the quest with them or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that why wouldn't they be indulgent? They made so much money. They had enormous tours. They had their own private jet. I don't know if a band other than maybe Elvis had a private jet before then.
Right.
Like they were like big, and you can almost like, I don't know, maybe I'm using my imagination, but you can almost hear the indulgence on the
Oh
records.
yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. I don't disagree
Yeah,
with that
yeah,
at all. No, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and
yeah,
I get into that a little bit on this album too. Uh,
yeah.
but no, absolutely, you can fucking hear it, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's. I'm surprised there's not a fucking theremin on one of their albums for fuck's sake.
There probably is. The thing about the Jimmy Page sloppy thing is interesting. Like,
No. John
because
Bonham's sloppy. Jimmy Page is fucking amazing. John
well,
Bonham is
people always say Jimmy Page is sloppy. People always
really
say
okay.
that. Like, yeah, and where was I going with that? It- it's funny. He's sort of like in and out, right? So like if you watch what's the big move the live movie Song Remains the Same, the live
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was filmed over a few nights. One of the songs is Since I've Been Loving You. It's like a
Uh-huh.
blues thing. That motherfucker destroys. I've never heard it's like his interpretation of what would be like a BB King-ish blues. I've never heard anything. There's parts of that still, when I hear the little rolls and stuff that he does on the guitar, I'm like, the fuck is that? Like, and there's also, if you go into the later years, I have a friend who collects Zeppelin bootlegs. Like he's into it, man. Some of the last, like the late shit, like at the end, Bonham is well documented, full blown alcoholic at this
Uh,
point. He's not even riding with the band. He's all fucked up. Jimmy Page is on heroin. Like there are parts of this like particular show that I'm thinking of that we listen to, and there are parts where he's Jimmy Page, and then there's parts that sound like a little kid picking up a guitar for the first time at Guitar Center.
oh
Like
wow.
he's literally he's nodding off. You're like,
Okay.
wow, he's fucked. But as far as people saying he's sloppy, or even I get maybe this applies to John Bonham too. I wonder if they're trying to create a moment, like they're trying to. He's willing to risk that to make something happen in the moment.
Okay.
That's what I wonder. I don't know that that's
No,
true.
no,
I'm
no.
just saying
That's a legitimate point, though. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll
they
give you
would
that.
stretch out songs when they played live and stuff. They would go into these sort of improv things,
Uh huh.
and you have to imagine that some nights it landed and some nights it didn't work. You know what I
Right.
mean? So yeah, I don't know.
I
It's
got you. I
it's
got you. I
really
got
hard for me to defend the entire career of Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean? But I do find the band very interesting still to this day. I you know
you. Okay.
I think it's a very interesting study, and because they became so famous and so huge so quickly, and they're such young men, I think that's interesting. I think you
Hmm.
hear that in the music a little bit, like
Okay.
you know. Just my take. I don't know. What
Yeah,
do I
no,
know?
that's fine. I mean, they had to steal the music of poor black men to do that, but
Yeah,
whatever.
right. So did Cream, and so did a lot of people. Their interpretations of blues or
Well,
whatever.
there's a difference between stealing a style or playing a style of music and straight up stealing music
Yeah,
from people.
they have they have they have been accused of it. It's true. Old
All right.
old dude, man.
Yeah, all right. So let's talk about the album we're here to talk about, Led Zeppelin 4. I am going to tell you all of the good stuff about Led Zeppelin 4 right now.
Okay.
All right. Rock and roll,
Yeah.
as I've said before, is an absolutely amazing song. In my opinion, one of the greatest songs ever written and recorded. Flat out. Of like all of like recorded music, one of the greatest songs ever written and recorded.
Interesting.
And it is a person for like my person. If I had to rank like, top songs, like top to bottom, like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Rock and roll is definitely a top 5. It's probably a top 3,
Mm.
maybe even number 1. Like, it is, rock and roll is
Yeah.
one of those songs that if I'm flipping through the radio and I hear any part of rock and roll, number 1, I recognize it right away. That's number 1. And number 2, I will stop the fucking dial and I will turn it up and I will listen to it. If I pull up to my destination and the song is on, I will wait to get out of the car until rock and roll ends. Until I hear the fucking drums, you know what I mean? Until I hear it at the end with the, you know what I mean? I don't fucking move. It's a great song. Absolutely. 100% amazing song. And it's great. It is great. And the rest of this album is shit.
That's great.
It's boring.
Well,
It's sloppy.
right,
It's
right.
self-indulgent shit that lacks substance lyrically and musically, in my opinion. And the other thing is I'm actually very curious, and I should have probably looked it up a little bit. This was
Yeah.
Adam's pick, so maybe he would have known. I don't know. What happened to John Bonham during the recording of this album?
What do you
Because,
mean?
well, because I mean, is that you have one of the greatest drummers of all time,
Uh-huh.
and he is missing from almost 40% of this album. It's an
Mm.
8-track album. 2 of them
That's a good.
don't have drums in them, and 3/4 of the other song he doesn't play on.
That's a good
So,
point. Yeah.
like,
That's a.
what the fuck? Like, I know he, he eventually died from alcoholism and whatnot, but what happened? Like, how did that, like, how do you have someone who is quote unquote one of the greatest drummers of all time, and nix him from almost half the album?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. I've never heard anybody raise that question. I've
yeah.
honestly never heard anybody raise that question before. That's a really good point. So
Thank
Adam
you.
picked this album. Did Adam pick this album because he likes it or because he wanted to annoy you?
I think a little bit of like column A, a little bit of column B. I think there's a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of both in there, because it is from his collection, so he does own the album. So it's not like he just like randomly picked up. All right, so
Yeah.
let's take this Black Dog, right?
Yeah.
Yawn. I just fucking yawned during that song. It's fucking. It is terribly played blues scales, and actually, thank God for John Bonham, because he actually keeps that song together, whereas the guitar and bass just go fucking off. And there's actually only one point, and you know what I'm talking about when you're playing music and you're playing live, and you kind of go
Yeah.
off, and you kind of do this like kind of like half beat to get everything back on. It happens
Uh-huh.
once during the song. It only
I know
happens
where
once
you.
during it,
I know
but it
what
doesn't
you mean.
happen again. So whatever they did live and or recording it, John Bonham was able to just keep that
Yeah.
like, okay, this he would
Yeah.
bring it in and then they would go off and he would just be like, I'm just going to be right here and I'm not going to fucking move. I'm going to do my thing. And then, okay, we're back on, so good for him for able to do it. But that's all that song is. It's just boring, fucking terribly played blues scales. Battle of Nevermore and Stairway to Heaven. Who the fuck cares about Hobbits and the Lord of the Rings? I don't care. Lord of the Rings sucks. I don't care about the fucking Tolkien books. I can't read anyway. It's fucking just self-indulgent bullshit. Like, oh, let me write about the little hobbits. Fuck you, dude. When the Levee Breaks,
Oh,
that and part, and the opening of Stairway to Heaven was stolen. You're fucking stealing songs from people, putting different names on them. Four Sticks, it's okay. Has some good
do you know?
drums on it.
Do you know who they're accused of stealing it from? Do you know?
Which one? Stairway to Heaven?
Yeah.
It's Tarkus by Spirit. The opening of Tarkus by Spirit, and apparently the story goes is that they were actually on tour with Spirit, and they were actually when they were playing, they were covering Spirit songs in their set.
Strange.
Yeah, really... exactly. And then they do Stairway to Heaven, and it's just like Spirit's like, yo, what that's our fucking song.
For Spirit.
Yeah, the album is what do I have here? I can't read my writing. The album is 30 minutes of boredom and what it sounds like a monkey. Oh, and okay. It's 30 minutes of boredom and what it sounds like when a monkey fucks a football is what this album sounds like, with the exception of 3 minutes and 37 seconds. That is the greatness of rock and roll.
Very specific. Yeah, yes. Very specific.
like take rock and roll out and listen to the rest of the album and think about a monkey fucking a football, and that's what Led Zeppelin 4 sounds like.
Wow, that's something.
So, and to all the Led Zeppelin, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask you. So, because it's happened to me plenty of times, when you dislike an album so passionately that so many other people, like you said, 37, whatever the millions of people, how do you try to rectify that in your mind? Do you give a shit? Like,
you know what, dude? You just had the greatest fucking segue without even realizing it.
Okay.
So they sold 37 million copies of this album, and all that it proves to me is that people have really shitty taste in music. And here is to prove it, right? So I looked it up. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is kind of like, whatever, the greatest selling albums in US history of all time, right? And it has a bunch of lists. It has the ones that are like over 20 million, and then like 15 to 20, and then 10 to 15, and then under 10 million copies, right? So and I'm not going through the whole list, but I am going to point out artists. Some of these artists show up multiple times on this list of 4 different sections. Some of them just show up once. Okay. So any self-respecting Led Zeppelin fan, I think, would agree that these bands suck. So here are the bands and artists that show up on the top selling records of all time, meaning they've sold at least 2 million copies of a record up to 37 million copies of a record. Ready? Here you go. Katy Perry, Smashing Pumpkins, Garth Brooks is on there like 4 fucking times. Nickelback. What's that? Yeah. Nickelback, Hootie and the Blowfish, the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Kenny Rogers, Kenny fucking G is on this list. Celine Dion, Creed, MC Hammer, the Bee Gees, the Dixie Chicks, Shania Twain. The list goes on and on and on. These bands suck. Their music is bad, yet they've sold at least 2 million copies of a record, up to as much as fucking, like 30 million copies. People have bad taste in music. That's how I...
I agree. And sometimes I'm not even sure if their taste or whatever can be shaped. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what happens when money descends on something and it's pushed on you, and you hear it so much, it just gets into your fucking brain, and then you're like, oh, I like this.
One of the things that I found interesting were when looking through that list were the people who are not on that list. And now this list is, I will say, is not about overall album sales. It's about specific album sales. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, but like the Rolling Stones only appear on the list once, and it's for Hot Rocks, so I'm sure they've sold, probably 30, 40 million albums worldwide, but not of a specific title. I think Hot Rocks was in that like 5 to 10 million records. The Beatles are on there multiple times, which does make sense, even though I'm not a Beatles fan either. I get it. Johnny Cash does not have an album on that list. Willie Nelson does not have an album on that list.
Yeah, I don't think Johnny Cash. I don't
What's
think
that?
he ever sold a lot of records until he had his sort of like revival, Johnny
Right.
Cash. I don't think he was like a major. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
And there's so many artists who I would consider like just so much better
Yeah,
than half of these people that I've listed here who have
yeah,
never had a record that has sold that many copies. I mean, like I know we're both fans, and I get it. They don't have a mass commercial appeal, but Fugazi, you know what I mean?
yeah.
They're fucking great. I think they're better than Led Zeppelin.
I think coming from where they're coming from, they did extremely. They sold a lot of fucking
They
records.
did, and they did. You know what I mean?
And
But
that's
when
the
you,
thing. It's like I've never really liked popular music that much. Like when I
Mhm.
was a kid, I remember listening to like the earliest things I remember on the radio was like Borderline by Madonna, things like that. You know, maybe like Phil Collins or some shit.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah.
like those. I remember liking those songs on the radio. And then I sort of immediately, I just like underground music. I don't know why. I don't
Yeah.
know why that is. It just that's why the whole sloppy thing is funny because every punk band that I listen to is fucking
Oh yeah,
sloppy.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? I love
Absolutely.
it. You know? So, and then sort of like through my becoming obsessed with guitar, I think is where I started to listen to like classic rock or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Uh huh.
So what I often wonder is, you have the Beatles, right? And this is just my convoluted history of things. You have the Beatles. All of a sudden, all people are paying attention to music, right? Like music's a thing. People are buying records in the late '60s, or mid to late '60s. They're taking the time to put the record on. They're reading the cover. The Beatles are doing like Sergeant Pepper and these fucking concept things, and they're tripping people out because people are taking the time to pay attention to it. And I wonder if that didn't seep into Led Zeppelin and their concepts and their fucking, they've got people's attention now. Are they pressured? Are they pressured to tell stories about fucking The Hobbit? Is The Who doing it with Quadrophenia and Tommy? You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting. I wonder, like, what came first? Is this their genuine expression, or do they understand that there's an opportunity to make this production, to take this thing in a bigger, different direction. I don't know.
So okay, so you said something very interesting there. Their genuine expression. I will say this: that
Yeah.
even with the Hobbit bullshit, right, and everything you say, I do feel as if it is their genuine expression that
Hmm.
was let loose probably by Sergeant Pepper and
Hmm.
Rubber Soul more specifically
Yeah,
too. Because
sure.
that album was kind of like a concept-ish type. It's not like as much as Sergeant Pepper, but Rubber Soul's got some real, you know. I think actually Rubber Soul's a better album than Sergeant Pepper, even though I think Sergeant Pepper gets all the fame and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
my favorite. Yeah.
but I think because of those two particular albums being what they are, and I don't like the Beatles, but as good as they are, you know what I mean. It then opened the door for the Hobbit bullshit. It opened the door for Tommy. It opened the door for Quadrophenia.
Yeah.
Even opened the door for like recent shit like that fucking Green Day American Idiot to be able to do that, and and then take that and run with it. That whole concept album of like, we're gonna take this and we're gonna go with it. And I mean, even for your favorite band, Styx. A little Paradise Theater, and you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
I'm not against sticks. I'm not. It's just I love that you brought up sticks. I'm not against
Right,
sticks.
man.
It's just that once you heard like, I mean, really. Well, let me put this. As far as like guitar music goes in general, what people call classic rock now, you're really not that
Oh,
into that shit. I'm asking you, are you
oh, you're
really
all
not
frozen. I
that
don't know what
into?
happened. Hold on, you froze there for a second.
Am I back? Okay.
Oh,
Am I
you're all
back?
frozen. You're back. Hold on. All
Oh
right.
shit!
Wait, are you there? Okay, there you go. There you go. So you were saying.
Sorry, I have a brand new computer. I swear, and we've got fiber optic internet, so that's all I can do. Um, do you get real deep into guitar music?
Do I get deep into guitar music?
Yeah,
No, no,
like
no.
like
So all
classic.
right. So you were frozen when you were saying. Classic
Okay.
rock, yeah, man. Like I love classic rock. I would say like my favorite classic rocks. stuff is the Who, it's the Beatles, not the Beatles, fuck the Beatles, the Who, the Rolling
Oh,
Stones. Those are my like two, you know,
yeah.
those are my English bands, you know what I mean? But like I do enjoy Bad Company, even though Bad Company I think at one point was considered the next Led Zeppelin. That's the other thing too. I hate the fucking next Led Zeppelin bands. Every single, with the exception of Bad Company, every single next Led Zeppelin fucking sucks. Every single one of them that I've heard has just not been good.
Who are we talking about? I get Bad Company. Who else? Is there more?
Kingdom Come.
Oh,
Um,
fuck that.
what's the other one? The most recent, the fucking Greta Van Edda or some
Mm.
shit like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, that's not what I'm
Yeah,
talking
I don't like that, and I think it's kind of like a black mark on uh the bands. Like they're saying, oh, they're gonna be the next Led Zeppelin. Well, you just fuck that band because they're not. You know what I mean?
about.
Um,
Right.
but no,
Yeah.
I get into the guitar. So I'm trying to think like what other like old like guitar rock I get into. It's like
Yeah.
trying to think like just like what's in my collection. But I mean, like I like it. I get into it. I enjoy it. I definitely you know, like I'm not an overall like Peter Frampton fan, but Frampton Comes Alive's a great album.
Pretty
You
cool
know,
album. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good album. Kiss I think was overrated, but I don't mind Kiss. Thin Lizzy's great, you know.
Yeah.
Trying to think like
Yeah.
just I mean there's other stuff I like. I don't mind the Allman Brothers, but I don't really like jammy music. You know what I mean? Like I'm not into the whole jam band thing, so it gets a little like, all right guys, you did a solo, that's nice. Can you stop it now for you know the last 30 minutes? It's cool, dude. You know, so you know, but I appreciate it. You know what I mean? I didn't mind Skinner. You know, it's so I do like you know like the old. I do like the classic rock. I'm into the classics.
And I'm not really not, pushing. I'm just asking.
Uh,
Do the earlier Zeppelin records, are they better for you than
no,
because
no,
there's definitely something different about Zeppelin 1 and Zeppelin 4. I mean, they're night and day.
oh, no, there is, but no, they don't do anything for me. Like nothing Led Zeppelin does anything for me except rock and roll and the song Tangerine. I've said that
Oh,
for years.
Tangerine's a
You've
good.
heard me say it. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
the only two songs that I like by them is Rock and Roll and Tangerine. And
yeah.
Rock and Roll is like I said, one of the greatest songs ever written. I just don't know if they wrote it or if they stole it. That's all. Uh,
Yeah,
but
sure.
shit, I was gonna say something else too. Fucking I can't remember now. It was actually something kind of cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's just yeah. Led Zeppelin it just doesn't do it for me. It never did, and I
No,
don't think it ever will.
you're not the only one. I think Keith Richards famously said that, like, I love all the guys in the band, but nope, not for me. And I think
Yeah,
maybe, I don't want to say the wrong shit, but I think maybe like Eric Clapton or somebody else said the same thing. Like, yeah, no, that's
yeah.
not. Yeah.
And I love Clapton. Like that's another one. Anything Clapton, I've always seemed to have enjoyed.
Well, even their name, right? Like, you'd have to look it up because I forget. But somebody said, like, upon hearing them get together as a band, said that shit's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin, and that's where they took their
Yes.
name from. I don't remember who it
Yep.
was. So that was
Yeah,
somebody else that thought they sucked, right?
yeah, I heard
So
that too. They're like, oh my god, what the hell is this? Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. Yeah,
yeah,
that I've heard that story as well. So,
yes. So I don't
uh,
know. It's interesting. It's hard to tell why they were. I mean, I like the records, but it's hard to measure why anything is so successful. It really is.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it a
This
weird
this
hype
is
thing?
just
I love how
yeah.
much you
This
just.
oh no, I just remember what I was gonna say. The
Yeah.
best thing to ever come out of Led Zeppelin was Dread Zeppelin.
Dread
Do you
Zeppelin
remember
was cool.
Dread Zeppelin?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
so for people who don't know, Dread Zeppelin is Led Zeppelin songs done in a reggae style,
Tell,
sung
tell
by
them
an
all.
Elvis impersonator with Elvis
Yeah,
lyrics.
yeah. It's
You know what
it's
I mean?
genius. I'm gonna grab
It
another
is.
beer.
It's
It's
yeah.
outside
Go
because
do it.
I don't have a fridge here.
It's all good. It's all good.
Ice cold.
There you go.
It
There you
worked.
go.
I think Zeppelin 4, and I know you're not going to like this, but I think Zeppelin 4 is a staple 70s record. I really do. I think if you're going to do if you were going to have a collection of rock music from the 70s, it's essential in my opinion. And I know you don't
I
like it, but
I don't
I
disagree.
just
No, I
think,
don't disagree with it. I don't
yeah,
disagree with your statement. It's just like if I were to curate a collection for somebody, right? If someone's like, I want to start a vinyl collection, but I want to focus on seventies rock.
yeah,
Absolutely, every Led Zeppelin album would be in it. Do you know what I mean? Or at the very least, Led Zeppelin 4 would be in there. How could you not? How could you not have it in there? It
yeah.
is an iconic album. Doesn't mean it's a good album. It's just iconic. You know.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of those out there.
Oh,
That's
I thought about my like another like as far as excuse me, probably the greatest guitar player in my opinion ever lived, Jimi Hendrix, man. Anything Hendrix, dude, I'm into
oh,
it.
fucking absolutely. Yeah,
You know, so
I think yeah, that's hard to deny Jimi Hendrix. He on
mhm.
another on on another planet, literally.
Yep.
I, he would be the one guy. All these guys, all these rock and roll people die young and stuff.
Hmm.
You know, what
Yep.
would what would what would Kurt Cobain's music sound like today? I don't know. I think it
Yeah.
could go either way. Jimi Hendrix, I think, was headed to some fucking serious shit. I think he was going to be just this otherworldly musician, in my opinion. I think he was the most
Yep.
naturally gifted guitar player ever. I mean, he just unbelievable off
I
the map, in my humble opinion.
100% agree. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. He is probably in my opinion, he's probably the greatest rock guitarist to
yeah,
ever put on a strat. I mean, plain and
easily,
simple. So
easily.
yep.
I know people like to compare guitar players. I don't think there's any comparison. I think he's easily the
Yep.
best.
Yep.
I
he
do
was he was one
understand.
of the first ones.
Go on. Yeah.
He was one of the first ones to use effects the way that he did, to use feedback the way that he did, to fuck with the tones on the amps and the guitar, and use
Yep.
pedals and stuff like that. He was one of the ones who did it, and it influenced so much. It had a blues style, but then it also got into a garage rock style, and he could hit psychedelia, as well as
Yeah.
play pop music. I think probably um, if it's not for Jimi Hendrix, you don't have Prince, and Prince was absolutely amazing with that stuff as well.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
And as far as Zeppelin goes, this just occurred to me. I will say that I understand the sound of Led Zeppelin. I can see from somebody else's point of view. There's a bit of a fight going on there. Like it does sound
Yep.
very. There's friction in Led Zeppelin's music. It sounds very. It kind of sounds like a fist fight. Like you said, you got four monster players,
Uh
and
huh.
like with the Who, same thing, but something about it is definitely different than Led Zeppelin. I don't know why the Who works. On paper, it shouldn't work, but you listen to
Um.
the Who, and I just watched this Quadrophenia thing, and it's like that music is insane. How the fuck did Roger Daltrey even figure out how to sing over that shit? It's-
Yeah.
there's this friction, but it's a different kind of friction. I think
Yep.
some of it is the sound of their instruments. I think John Bonham played this real thunderous, like it sounds like a thunderstorm. He's got this loose bass drum and it's bombastic and it's this fucking. And then Jimmy Page sort of has this shrill, brittle guitar sound at times. I get it. I get why. Like I can almost picture my mom or something in my head being like, "What is that?" Because the sound of it is so combative, and like I do understand that it doesn't sound. It's not that easy to digest. I get that. I do get that.
Yep. 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 And it's like I said, and when you think about that, probably the least of the musicians in the band, and I mean this no disrespect, is probably John Paul Jones, and again, he's one of the greatest rock bass players ever. When you listen to him, if you isolate his stuff, it's like Entwistle. Did you ever listen to John Entwistle's isolated bass on "Won't Be Fooled Again"?
Oh, fuck yeah, it's insane.
It's
Yeah.
fucking, it's all over. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how are you doing this? And
Yeah.
I think John Paul Jones is probably similar type bass player. I think Entwistle's a little bit better, and I think that does have to do a little bit with the fact that I like the Who better than Led Zeppelin. I'll say I might be a little biased
My
because of that.
opinion on that, yeah, my opinion on that is I don't think anybody knows the depth of John Paul Jones. I don't think anybody knows how good that fucking dude is because he took that
Yeah.
role. He was the guy in the shadows. But he actually played, I believe he played the mandolin on some of that stuff, not Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Page. He played the whatever that fucking weird keyboard thing is.
Uh-huh.
More recently, I saw him playing some fucking weird, like 8-string monstrosity instrument. I don't know what the fuck it was. I think that guy's just a real sleeper. I don't think he's ever going to be the guy in the front, Jimmy Page. So I don't know if anybody.
Right.
Fantastic musician from what I can tell, but whatever
yeah.
whatever the keys are on Stairway, I think he played all that.
Okay. Cool.
I can't say for sure, but
Yep. So
I just saw this thing about the Who. I was watching this Quadrophenia documentary, and it's on YouTube. It's free, if you want to watch it. Because Quadrophenia is like that record for me is fucking. It just blows my mind. I love it.
Okay.
And they go into like the artwork and this and that. But anyway, you ever notice Pete Townsend kind of just does these big bam, 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 bam. Well, the subject of Keith Moon comes up, and he kind of says like, "Well, I didn't think much of him as a drummer." Which sounds funny at first because you're like, what do you mean? He's Keith Moon. But like he didn't really hold it down. So Pete says, so that's why I was always playing this. Somebody had to do it, right? Because everybody else because Entwistle and Moon are just going fucking crazy all the time. So Pete's like and holding it kind of together. Which I guess I knew that, but I never thought about it like that. So I was like, oh shit, right.
Yeah, he's basically he's counting time while everybody else is just doing their thing. It makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. I'd see that. Yeah, totally makes sense. So
crazy.
It's funny, and I mean, we could do a whole episode about the Who too, but I will say that like when it comes to like Pete Townsend, I feel as if I mean, obviously he's an amazing guitar player, but I think Pete Townsend is much more of an amazing songwriter than he is a technical guitar player.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic. And a great songwriter as well.
And I think that's where the genius of the Who comes through is through his songwriting, not his guitar playing. Indeed. Whereas almost different points of this album, this album, but there's different points where each person shines on this album, I guess, from a Led Zeppelin standpoint. Because there are things, even though like the songs that I don't particularly care for, there's stuff that I've heard where I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool. Like, I mean, I pointed out in Four Sticks, like how good the fucking drums are in Four Sticks. When you think about like when you're hearing like the hi-hat, he's like keeping the hi-hat going on the fucking eighth notes, and he's like riding the toms, and all of a sudden a fucking cymbal crash comes in on an upbeat, and it's like, whoa, okay, where the fuck did that come from? You know what I mean? So there is definitely elements, and like I said, they're amazing musicians. There are elements of good musicianship throughout this album. It just sounds like shit, with the exception of rock and roll. But so obviously I don't like this album. I'm assuming you do like the album and you like Led Zeppelin in general.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So I have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter upstairs who also has an opinion on this album. Who really, honestly, let's face it, her opinion is the only one that matters, right? We're just mere peons compared to Regina. So I did play this for Regina, and it is a solid indifferent for Regina. Almost borderline dislike, but she didn't have the overall dislike reactions that would like give it an overwhelming, yeah, she hates this fucking album. But definitely when it was playing, she was just kind of staring out into like the Netherlands going like, what is this crap that I'm listening to? It's not, I guess these guys are good musicians, but this sounds like a monkey fucking a football, is I'm pretty sure what the expression on her face said. But I will say when rock and roll came on, she was bopping a bit. So I was like, all right,
Yeah.
cool. So on the
Jam.
Regina factor, that brings Adam the 6 likes, 1 dislike, and 1 indifferent. My records are done. I'm at 8 likes, 1 dislike, and 1 indifferent. The listeners are at 3 likes, 1 dislike, and 3 indifferents. And Tom, the bartender, the country heartthrob, is pulling up the rear again at 3 likes and 1 indifferent. So I know I threw you kind of into this episode. So do you have a top 3 songs on this album?
Yes, because I thought about it earlier today, but I do need to pull up
Okay,
the
cool.
track list.
Yep, do it.
4 Sticks is fucking cool, man. That song, there's some weird, spooky shit on that song. I think the riff is cool. The drum thing is fucking cool. That might stand out as my favorite. And if I'm not mistaken, I think when we saw Robert Plant, they played that song. They played a Zeppelin song.
They played Battle of Evermore. I remember that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they played Battle of Evermore because I was like, oh, this fucking song. I'm gonna go take a piss.
The other thing was, I think When the Levee Breaks is fucking cool, and the Beastie Boys sampled that beat, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Or like Slow and Low or something. One of those, I forget
Something
which one.
like that, yeah.
And I've always loved Going to California, man. That song is, I don't know. To me, I thought when I was a kid, I thought that was like the most mystical, magical shit. Like this is where your mind goes when you're like a 12-year-old. You're like, oh my god, they're on the side of a mountain with fucking banjos and mandolins and shit. I don't know what's going on that track. You know, singing about fucking gold coins or something. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah.
So those are gonna be my favorites.
Okay, so my top 3 songs are Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
And I'm giving an honorable mention to 4 Sticks. That's it. I'm not even putting it as a like. I'm just giving it an honorable mention.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed that you even did that.
Do you have a least favorite song on this album?
I used to really like Battle of Evermore, but today, on this particular day, that might be my least favorite song.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is also my least favorite song. And I will give a dishonorable mention to Stairway to Heaven. Mainly it's I don't particularly like Stairway to Heaven. I never really liked Stairway to Heaven, but it's overplayed by like a million times overplayed, which I think is the other thing that, you know, I hate Battle of Evermore more, but I'll just give it a dishonorable mention for Stairway to Heaven. So you have a copy of this, right? Presumably.
I do, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do.
So I will say that one of the things that, in regards to Led Zeppelin, right, as much as I don't particularly like their music, I love to have their records inside the Ottsville Record Garage because Led Zeppelin is overall a very lucrative band to have their stuff. I always have, yeah, man. I always have brand new factory sealed copies of their albums in stock, as well as used copies. They're one of those bands. When I'm looking to pick up used records, they're one of the bands. It's like if I see something that has the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors, Zeppelin, or the Grateful Dead, I'm generally going to try to pick up that lot of used records because it's like, okay, you got some good stuff in there that will sell. Even some of it doesn't necessarily sell fast. Like I have some Beatles records that like I've had on the shelf, like Hard Day's Night. I have like 2 copies of like old used copies of Hard Day's Night that I've had on the shelves for like almost a year now, but like I'm not worried about it. They will sell. You know what I mean? So it's like there are stuff like that. Yeah, right. But there you go. But there is like certain ones that just kind of like pop off the shelves right away. And that's why Led Zeppelin is definitely one of those bands, especially as I'm building up the collection for the eventual actual brick and mortar store of the Ottsville Record Garage. You know, Led Zeppelin stuff is one of those bands that I want to get and I will definitely have represented in the store, even though I don't like their music. But for the Discogs value here, this is Adam's copy, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, it fell off when I pulled it out to check it, but there was a little sticker, and I saved the sticker on his poly sleeve. And if you can see it, it looks like he may have paid $45 for this copy, which I was like, man, why would you pay $45 for a fucking copy of this? You could buy a new one for like 25.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up and realized he has a 1971 German pressing of this album. So it's an import. It's got a gatefold cover, which I thought was really cool. As soon as I pulled it out and saw the Gemma on the label, you can see it right there. It has the Gemma on the label there. I was like, oh fuck, this is an import. And then you look into it more, and that's when I was able to determine it's a 1971 German pressing. Even in the etchings, it's stamped "Made in Germany," which I thought was pretty cool. So then when I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's why this thing cost $45. The Discogs value on this for a very good plus copy is $63.59. So if he paid $45, his return is $64. So, you know, if he wanted to sell it, he'd probably make some money off of that. So that brings Adam up in the Discogs value to $503. I'm still in the lead at $823. The listeners are at $464. And because this is a Booze and Vinyl, Tom also gets credit for it, even though he wasn't here today. And his total now goes up to $226. So there you go. So those are the Discog values. And normally, as I know, Sean, you've been on the podcast many times over. You know that we would normally go to the box of Michael right now, but it's just me. So I already pulled the envelope here. And and we got for next week's episode, it is I don't know about this album. So I'll say this. I have in my mind what I think this band is. This is a listener pick. Friend of the podcast, Megan, the Gen Z prospector, will probably be on next week's episode as well. This is a listener pick. It's one of her listener picks. It is Boys Likes Girls, Sunday at Foxwoods. So
never heard of it, but I'm very old.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Like this is one of those bands I think I'm not even 100% sure. I think is like a early 2000s type of emo-ish type of band. I'm not. I really I don't know much about Boys Like Girls. Like if there was a Boys Like Girls song on right now, I probably would not know it was them. So I am going to go into it with an open mind because I'm just not familiar with it. But seeing how kind of the last couple of Megan's picks went, I'm not looking forward to this. I don't think.
How old is Megan?
She is I think 27 now.
Yeah, we're not supposed to get it, man.
I know. I realize that. I realize that we're not supposed to understand what some of this stuff is. But hey, you know what? I try to be hip. I try to be the hip dad. You know what I mean? I'm about to have another baby. So
you're definitely the hip dad. There's no doubt about that.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. Well, Sean, listen, I know you kind of like jumped in last minute on this, and I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk about Led Zeppelin 4 here. You know, you have not convinced me to like Led Zeppelin, but I will say this. I will challenge the listeners and the people watching this podcast to try to convince me about Led Zeppelin. Try to convince me about the greatness of Led Zeppelin. Leave your message. Leave it in the comments. Drop it. I don't care if it's a really long one. I know on the Taylor Swift one, some listener left like a 10 paragraph comment about, you know, Taylor Swift, which is fine. I actually read the whole thing and was like, wow, okay. So leave it in the comments on Spotify and on YouTube, or you know, DM me on Instagram at the Country Hipster Podcast and convince me. Tell me why am I so wrong about Led Zeppelin? I'm not wrong about Led Zeppelin, but I will give you guys the opportunity to convince me otherwise. So there you go.
The Taylor Swift comment, was it positive or negative?
It was a little bit of both, I guess. It was you have to go back to season 1 excuse me and look at the folklore episode on YouTube. It was there were a couple. There was a little bit of back and forth there. There was first she kind of made fun of the podcast, and I called her out on it.
That's
And then the other comment was more about how we were just so wrong about Taylor Swift and very pro Taylor, but like I wasn't even bashing Taylor Swift, so I think she kind of missed the point of the episode. But at any rate,
yeah, right. Okay.
yeah. So please, if you guys want to convince me that Led Zeppelin is the greatest band ever, tell me why. Tell me why, because that song is on one of the top selling albums of all time as well, and it sucks. So yeah.
I hope I didn't.
So
I hope I didn't. I hope I didn't disappoint 37 million Led Zeppelin fans.
no pressure whatsoever.
No pressure whatsoever. Yeah, fucking great.
Listen, it was 37 million against 1, and I think I won. I think I took all you bitches out on this episode, in my opinion. So
Well done, sir. Well done.
All right, man. Thank you very much, Sean. On that note, it is time to